Yeah.
Hello, everyone, and welcome to another episode of the Monday Night 2-Point Conversion. I messed up the name order, but that's okay. I'm always messing up names. Classic co-host returns. Dan's not here. So no rants tonight, folks, but Gladys and I are glad to be joined in a triumphant, glorious return of Dr. X.
Dr. X, that's right.
I couldn't say Ferretti all those years back. But
oh, man. What a good memory that was.
Well, you've given us so many great memories over the years, Doc. So glad you can at least provide us one more this
season. That. It's good to be back, and I don't know about you guys, but who says the B League isn't here?
Sounds more like
at that a long time.
With A League, the Australian.
Everyone's a critic. Oh, guys, it's good to be back. I know we've been trying to plan this out for a little while. You guys have been doing extremely well in my absence, so credit to you. But it's good to be back and share the Monday night pregame set with you one more time. So here we are.
I'm actually watching the Stanford Florida State Women's College Soccer Championship.
Who's winning?
Florida State 2-0. They're going to win. Stanford's never been behind. Like, they're known for their defense. They've never been behind more than one goal. And you could tell as soon as that second goal was scored, they're like, how do we play now? So, yeah. But remember was it last year? 2 years ago, the Stanford goalie committed suicide, like after they'd won the championship. So that's
really? No, I didn't hear about that. That's crazy.
Yeah, and it was like a rash of female suicides in college at that time that she did it. Like another girl had committed suicide like 2 months before. But there was never any reason. They never gave a reason why she did. So they were commemorating her at halftime. They're still not going to win that. Florida State's going to kick their ass. So sorry. It is what it is.
So speaking of ass kickings, who's winning the pick'em this year? What are the standings for the pick'ems? So I forget who won last year. Wait, Glad, was it you? Kyle, it was you, right?
Doc, you definitely remember who won last year. I know you do.
I think it was someone named Doc or something.
Who's got 2 thumbs and kicked all your asses at the pick'ems? This guy. What are the standings? What are the standings as it is right now?
And let's don't humble yourself, Doc, at all.
I would never. I wouldn't dream of it.
You went wire to wire. You went 8 for 9 in your first 3 weeks, and you never looked back. No one ever took the lead from you. No one ever even caught up and tied you. Sometimes got close, but you just wire to wire led the whole way. Gladys was on pace to do the same thing. But Gladys, 2 straight weeks of going 0-3. You hadn't done that all year, and suddenly back-to-back weeks going 0-4-6 has allowed me to take the lead. Because I went a perfect 3-3 last week, and it was enough to now be up 24-16-2. You're at 21-19-2, and Dan's actually 1 spot behind you at 20-20-2. So everyone's at 500 or better. It's probably been a while since we could say that, probably like week 3, where all of us were at 500, because I had an awful stretch to start the season. So Gladys, even though with your 2 back-to-back 0-for-3s, I still have the most 0-for-3s on the year. I did it 3 times in like a 2-week span or 3-week span between week 2 and 4, including a doubleheader week 3 where I didn't get anything right. So yeah, there's still 3 games left because we have another doubleheader next week, so you can catch up for sure.
Hey, Doc, how's the puppy doing?
Well, the puppy is doing well. Thanks for asking. I still have all my hair, even though I've been tempted to pull it out a few times. So she got spayed earlier this week, and she is she's part Labrador, so she's very active. And we usually have our hour in the front yard where we play catch and fetch and all that, and that's all out the window. So now she's just crazy in the house. So we're all ready to have the collar come off. She's ready. My wife's ready. I'm ready. Collar's coming off on
I don't understand why you have the collar and the onesie.
Like we were just trying some things out.
Oh.
And she's got these short little legs because she's part corgi, so she could actually reach the incision with her little tiny legs. So I was like, we got to do something about this. And forget about the collar. She's scratching with her back legs. So I'm sure everybody's super curious about like my home life, but that's what's going on. When I haven't been doing fantasy football, I've been dealing with a post-op puppy. So
I was super curious.
But there you go.
All the miracle surgeries the Browns have put together this year at quarterback somehow landed them Joe Flacco. He almost ended up winning, though the Rams take over.
Was old as new again, apparently.
Yeah, Joe Flacco and Elijah Moore back together again.
There you go.
Surprised he didn't throw it 55 times. Talking about the Browns and the dog comes alive, right?
Everyone's a critic of the Browns. Even Gladys's dog doesn't like the Browns. Where's Jamie?
Oh yeah, no, it's for sure. But I guess talking the Browns, talking Gladys's team, the Steelers, but there's actually another AFC North team playing tonight here. So you can tell from the title, it's the Bengals at the Jaguars. And so we're just going to get into the props right away because we want to save, typical the normal, or typical previous seasons when Doc was here, we do all the injury stuff first. But I figured let's save that for the end, but we want to spend a lot of the episode doing that. So let's get this game data out of the way. Maybe we'll touch on it at the end just to remind people, but Bengals at Jaguars. Jaguars are 10-point favorites, and the spread is 40 points. So danger of a push on both fronts. So that's interesting to watch out for. And yeah, it's I guess we'll start with the almost unanimous selection across the board. But Gladys, Doc, and Dan all pick the Bengals as 10-point underdogs. And I'm going to be rebellious and go with the Jaguars. So let's there's a lot of information on why to go Bengals. I've got very little to say. So let's let everyone else talk. Doc, we'll let the guest go first. And why did you select the Bengals as 10-point underdogs?
All right. I'll be brief on this one. It's like 10 points. It's still the NFL. Like 10 points is a lot of points no matter what. Like, these are still professional teams. I could see just a lot of ways, like, the Jacksonville could go out there and they could beat them, be up by a touchdown, or they could be up multiple scores and have a garbage time touchdown, ruin it for you. You get a backdoor cover. Like, I just see a lot of ways where, it could go the other way. Not even to say, like, what if Jacksonville, lays an egg? Like, they've been pretty inconsistent at times this year. So, there's ways where this game is closer than we would even think, even with Browning at quarterback. So 10 points is a lot of points. So it was a bridge too far. That's basically my short answer.
There's like T. Higgins coming back to influence that. Like if Higgins hadn't returned, is maybe that enough to?
It doesn't hurt, but me, I've always been a Tyler Boyd stan. So whenever T. Higgins or Jamar Chase is out and Tyler Boyd is in, I'm like, I still feel like they can perform. Even Andre Iosivas has looked good at times. So it looks like they might give Chase Brown some more runs. So, they have some weapons on this team still. Of course, the quarterback go Canada.
Hey, it was a good week for Canadian running back. Trevor Hubbard had a great game.
I didn't even know he was Canadian, but that's another good one. He's really overperformed. What happened to Miles Sanders? I don't know if we have any time for that. But anyway, that's my answer. Is I think the Bengals can surprise some people, and the only thing Browning has to do at quarterback is not get in the way. And if he manages to do that, then I think they'll keep it close. And if they don't win, they'll at least keep it respectable.
All right, Gladys, do you want to share your thoughts? I can also read off what Dan is thinking too.
Same thing Doc said. Doc pretty much covered the whole hemisphere of why you would not take a 10-pound underdog in a professional, unless they were the Giants.
Sorry, Dan. But I mean, if you want to check out Dan's
not
show,
sorry.
D-League's Pick'em Show.
Sorry, not sorry.
Not sorry.
Show. He does a lot of picking and picks against the spreads, player prop picks, higher lowers, and so he's got a bit of information here. And just talking about Cincinnati specifically, this season they are 3-2. Five, like on their 5 road games, 3 of them have gone over. 3-2 over, 2 under. And then also Cincy is 2-0 as a road underdog this season. So only been twice on the season they've been underdogs on the road. Now, I think all those road games were started with Joe Burrow. So
yeah,
small
caveat to that.
But Jaguars wise, they're 3-2. So their games also 3-2 have gone over at home. So both Cincy and Jags line up in that. And I guess will lead to the next point. But Jags are 2-1 as home favorite against the spread, while Cincy is 1-1 as road underdogs. So it's slight favorites towards the Jags, but I guess not enough to like what you guys are saying. A 10-point spread is too much of that magnitude to that.
But you don't think so. So tell us what's going on the other side.
Well, I guess another pick will also reveal this too. I just have so little faith in Jake Browning that he'll actually, even with T. Higgins back, I still think this offense might be limited and they'll be hard pressed to even score double-digit points. This Jags defense has really come on strong of late. That pass rush is really good. And while Joe Burrow had been kind of used to life behind a not so ideal offensive line, while it has made improvements, I still don't think it's an elite unit. I think the Jags defense could really get after Jake Browning and really hold this offense to maybe 9-10 points. And so if the Jaguars don't have like a meltdown like they did against the 49ers and can just operate their offense at their like average efficiency, I think they'll be enough to cover the 10-point spread. The difference in quarterback to me is extreme enough. And while you're saying a huge fan of Tyler Boyd, Christian Kirk, my most rostered fantasy player entering the season. And I think right now that receiving core at least looks to be on equal footing with the Jaguars unit. And so I'll take what I think is the better defense right now performing. Well, Bengals defense is pretty good too, but I think the quarterback certainly makes up the difference in 10 points. For me.
It's going to be a fun one. How much does them being at home, Jacksonville being at home, did that sway you at all?
I guess enough to, if they were on the road, I probably wouldn't take a 10-point road favorite. But I'm good. I'd also anticipate if they were on the road, it would be set probably.
Yeah.
Usually it's the 3-point difference, or they only be 7-point favorites on the road. That might be intriguing enough for me to take it. Maybe a touchdown might be too far there. It's still just it's over a touchdown here, but it's still it's not 2 touchdowns. 14-point favorites. Okay, that's when it gets pretty extreme. I think at 10-point, I'm willing to risk it there. I'm also mostly just playing off a tendency at our group. So Doc, one of the things I've been tracking is our unanimous picks. When so far all 3, or in this case today, all 4 of us have made the same pick.
Mm-hmm.
We've been 500 essentially, 3-3.
Okay.
All 3 of those wins came on the higher lowers, not the spreads. And all 3 times we picked the same exact spread, we got all 3 wrong. So this is mostly to avoid that. I have a feeling it seems like it's the right pick, so we'll all make it and it'll somehow turn out wrong. So I want to be
on we'll see. I'll tell you what, though, if we're going to
hashtag analysis, as Dan says, when I come up with my random BS that doesn't make sense and probably isn't sound betting advice, but I'm winning this year, so I don't know.
Listen, you know what? Don't look too deeply into it. But I'll tell you what, the home thing is like being in Duval, that's a real thing. So it's like if we lose this one, I think it's going to be because the crowd gets behind the team and they just make it really hard on the Bengals to do anything. So that is possible as well. They have one of the best home setups in the NFL, I think.
Hey, Dan, tell your son I said happy birthday.
Yes, happy birthday. Happy birthday to Dan's son.
Home Alone
happy birthday,
experience was all that. Home Alone experience was great.
Yeah, awesome. Hey, Catherine O'Hara, another Canadian. There we go. So I already kind of revealed it with Dan's pick. He is going the over. One of the things again is that the Bengals road games.
Not over.
Oh my God, we're so over saying that I forgot about that. But yes, thank you, Doc. You see, you're on point. You never left. But yes, the Bengals on the road, their games 3-2 have gone over. Same with the Jags at home, 3-2 have gone over. So a combined 6-4 in that crossover settings that these match. So I think that's mostly what Dan is thinking. And it sounds like, again, the 3 of you picking the Bengals, you think their offense will do enough to keep up with the Jags. So enough points probably scored. So I know, Doc, you and Dan match perfectly. Bengals, 10-point favorites. And
I picked the lower.
Yeah, Doc picked lower.
I went lower.
Oh, sorry. Gladys, I should have said. You and Dan matched. Yeah, that's right. Yeah, Doc, you and I typically gone lower. You don't want to really.
I gotta stay on brand. That was. I think last year I picked. It was like 13 out of 16 lower or something like that. And the only one that I went over that I hit on was Chiefs Raiders, and that thing was like a rocket ship to the moon. I think it was like combined like 80 points in that game. That was a disaster.
I see.
Speaking of which, what is B League's record so far? The guy that has his own show on betting lines here on the Going for Two network, could just tell the people what his record is.
So on his B League's Pick'em show, it's like 89% supposedly every week, all the time, always 89%.
That sounds pretty good. Jimmy the Greek would be happy about that.
Here he's 500.
What is his record here?
20-20-2.
Well, you know what? It's better than a coin flip. Worked for Matthew McConaughey and 2 for the money, so I guess it's good enough for B League too.
Yeah.
Anybody who gets that reference, you are the real heroes out there.
Jamie's here. You're asking about earlier the Cleveland.
Good. I'm glad Jamie's here now, and he missed the Brown slander that we were talking 10 minutes ago.
He said, "What's up, Doc?"
Jamie, how are you? My occasional Sunday co-host, Jamie Pirogue.
Yeah, good old Jamie. We'll find out about Jamie's parlay for tonight because he'll always usually put one in. Should be interesting here. But yes, Gladys, sorry, but I mixed everything up. But yes, Gladys, you matched Dan perfectly with Bengals 10-point underdogs and the higher on the 40 points. So what was your reasoning for the higher?
Well, I think if they're going to keep it closer than 10 points, they're going to have to keep up with the Bengals, which means they're going to have to score points. So they would go higher than if you perceive the Jacksonville Jaguars scoring 2-3 touchdowns, Bengals would have to score at least 2 or 3. So they would be higher than 40.
Makes sense. Unless both offenses suck, and then you guys still get the 10-point underdogs. But yeah, I guess I do perceive there to be enough of that difference. But yeah, low enough to where I will take the lower on the 40. It was tempting. That's a pretty low one. But yeah, Doc's typical. And I went back and looked at last year. I think I only saw 2 higher picks for you, Doc.
There you go.
And you got one of them right.
Yeah, one of them I hit.
I've gone higher 3 times this year already, and all 3 have not hit. So now I'm just swinging with the lower every time. I was the Eagles Chiefs game tempted me. 45.5. That could be 50. Nope. So as much as I think, oh yeah, this could go higher than 40, I just don't have enough faith in the Bengals offense. And I was saying earlier this year, if it starts with the 4, I'm taking the lower. And exactly 40, as low as it could get while still meeting that criteria, tested me for a little bit. I was tempted to go higher. I think if I had faith in the Bengals, I would have gone completely the other way with both. Taking the Bengals as underdogs to keep up and taking the higher. But I don't think that offense will. That's the bet I'm making. I'm making it in both ways. Taking the lower than 40. And Doc, just on brand, go lower, right? You only have one appearance this year so far, so figure you're going to come out lower right away.
But I wanted to ask you guys about, because I've been hearing some things about people talking about, like, you guys are like true NFL fans. They've been talking about the product on the field, how teams aren't scoring, like how the product itself isn't as good as it maybe has been in years past. Do you guys agree with that? Like, is that what you're seeing, or is it still just as entertaining to you and you feel like nothing's different?
I mean, there's always been bad games. Right? Some games you watch, it's like, oh, this is a disaster. So there's, some of those are happening more in prime time, but I think we noticed that last year. Like, why are the Broncos in prime time so much? Like, they've just set these teams up to fail with so many prime time games with, like, oh, they expect the Jets to make or I guess this year with Aaron Rodgers, right? Oh yeah, let's put in a bunch of prime time games. No, having to watch Tim Boyle in prime time. Just like we thought. But I mean, you watch any Houston Texans game this year, I say the game is just as entertaining as ever. Like, every single Texans game this year is like come down to the wire. Their win against the Buccaneers, that loss against the Jaguars, this recent win against the Broncos. Everything's been incredibly exciting from start to finish. 2 scoring drives, really, key red zone plays making the difference in this game. The Texans could have taken a massive lead early, but 1 touchdown out of like 4 red zone trips or 3 red zone trips in the first half. So field goals, they got up there, but just the 1 touchdown, which unfortunately also ended up injuring and ending Tank Dell's season on the score. Yeah. So, but like the Texans games this year have been phenomenal. And I wonder if that's it. If you get the elite quarterbacks, and it seems like Stroud is on that trajectory to potentially be that, you'll get the good games. There's a lot of not so good quarterbacks in the NFL. So I think that's dragging down the quality at sometimes, making these defenses look a lot better, not because the defenses are elite, but the offenses are slow. That's, I guess, my explanation rant. That was elongated.
Gladys, what do you think? You think it's the same? You satisfied overall with the NFL product, or do you think it's worse?
I think that I think it depends on what expectations you come into the season with. People were expecting Aaron Rodgers to come into the season, and so their expectations were, Tom Brady's gone, but we have Aaron Rodgers, and so it's going to be like a shootout in every game. And I think when you lose that, the expectation, when no one expected CJ Stroud to be good, everyone expected Bryce Young to be good. No one expected, preseason, everyone expected the Steelers to be good. Everyone expected that the people have no patience anymore, right? So you have the Philadelphia Eagles who have a new DC and they have a new OC and they're still winning, but they're not winning like they won last year. And so everyone thinks they're not as good. I think that the expectation level, because of fantasy football and because of betting, has gone to a place where people are expecting their expectation is unrealistic for what it because you're dealing with actual people who have to make actual changes. So
Yeah.
no, I don't think the product is any worse. I think on some level the refs are not as good as they used to be. I
Mhm.
think the
Yeah.
calls are not as good. I don't think everyone is on the same page with what is one thing or another. But I think that as far as a product, it obviously isn't as bad because the ratings are just as high. It's just the
Oh, yeah.
expectation level because of betting, I think, is dragging things down.
Okay. That's so the product isn't different, but the perspective has changed or the expectations have
Right.
changed. That's
Yeah,
really
when you have like, people betting, when you have people like texting actual players telling them they're fucking up their fantasy league, that's crazy expectations. What are you thinking? I think the expectation level is just unrealistic because of fantasy football and because of DFS and everything. So yeah, I don't think the product is any worse than it was. I think people's expectations are just ridiculous.
all right. Well,
Hopefully, I mean, people are coming out in troves tonight, so they have high expectations for this Doc return. Zach's here. Toronto Dave's here. It's
Toronto
party time with
Dave,
the Doc.
Zach is here. Hey guys, thanks for dropping by. Jamie here is always appreciated.
Why isn't the Sunday show no more? Why did
I don't know
you
what Jamie's talking about. It's like there was this thing called Thanksgiving, like they took a week off, and it's like that's it. It's like just
I guess
maintain
there was
hope.
no
It's gonna
Sunday
be
show
okay.
this week either, so who knows?
It's gonna be okay. No, I know. It's I don't know. It's gonna be okay.
I mean, not to cross promote, but if there's no going for 2 Sunday show, I don't feel so bad anymore. But I do a Sunday stream on the Full Press Coverage live network. So if anyone,
Well, listen, if there's no Sunday show on Going for 2, then you go check out Kyle on the Full Press Coverage show.
there you go.
That's just the way it is.
JB, if you even want to join as a guest on that, like DM me for sure. We'll
Look at that, Jamie. See, we're making connections here. We're getting you jobs. So 10% finder's fee. We'll call it even.
All right, so
Stanford scored.
Public negotiations aside, we'll publicly state our player props for. I don't even know if Underdog uses props, but we have a promo code for Underdog. I suppose just to plug that since that's what we're talking about with all these
Yes, we
spreads.
definitely should.
Props. I don't want to hide our guest face.
That's
there,
all
so-
right. I'm ugly enough as it is. You can hide me.
Here we go. There's people can look at the fancy QR code. That'll draw their attention. But if you scan the QR code or use the promo code GF2 when making your initial Underdog deposits, this is for anyone who hasn't yet joined Underdog. If you do so, they will match you up to $100, whatever that initial deposit matches. But you have to use the promo code GF2 or scan the QR code on screen. And so, the Underdog allows you to participate in contests like NFL, NBA, NHL are now back on. MLB eventually. MLS, I think that's done. It might still be going. Whatever the Ballon d'Or rant we had a few weeks ago. I'm sure there's soccer being played somewhere in the world. Lots of contests to potentially wager on and play contests with. So Underdog Fantasy allows you to do that. Again, the $100 deposit match up to $100 accessible with the promo code GF2. So here going for 2. We're going for screen 2 to screen 1 again. There we go.
We're back. All right.
And so, player props. And again, as the Gladys, do we let the guest go first again and let Doc get his prop first?
Of course.
Or as Dan will say, you get to prop off now.
Is that what he says?
I mean, he's once said it, and he'll put it in his hashtags now instead of the Thomas the Tank Engine. It's a bunch of last week on the show. It was like prop off, get the prop out of here, all sorts of propping things.
Gladys, I haven't even given my prop, and your dog already doesn't like it. So I don't know. I don't know what to do. All right, so
Former Brown, is that why they're upset? This guy used to be a dog, but he's not anymore. He's a cat now. He's a jaguar. It's the opposite of the enemies.
So this prop it's Dearness Johnson, Hoya, 20.5 yards rushing. And the idea is it all centers around Travis Etienne's injury. So he's suiting up, he's playing, but I see a lot of ways where they could either funnel more carries to Dearness Johnson, either during the course of the game and or the Jaguars are up so much that they decide to just sit Travis Etienne down and let Dearness Johnson run out the clock. He gets his yards, and we hit the Hoya. So that's the way I see it. I think it's got a few ways that it could go. Or the other possibility is Travis Etienne re-aggravates the injury at some point during the game, and then Dearness Johnson has to step in, and now he's the running back, and he's getting the carries, he's getting the yards. So I just see multiple ways where it's a relatively low bar I know he hasn't gone over 20 yards, or he's been right around 20 yards the last couple of weeks, but I see a few pathways where he could kind of cross that threshold this week. So I figured it was worth a shot.
There's potential for him to see a season high in carries.
Yeah, more carries, more yards.
So you want to preserve Etienne regardless, and so this might be the week to get that opportunity and bet on him. And now, Gladys, I'm going to go first because it'll lead, I think, transition nicely to through all three of our props. But Doc's idea of this Etienne injury really influenced my idea because I initially looked at Etienne's receiving prop. I think it was at 14.5 receiving yards. Really appealing. He usually hits that, but maybe in a game with the injury limitations, they'll try and use him sparingly. Maybe that means less time on the field, less reception, so less likely to hit that. But I wonder if maybe D'Ernest isn't living up to expectations, or maybe just in general, with this limitation to their running back group, do they just decide to go with a pass-heavy approach, even if they're leading? We've got our franchise QB in Trevor Lawrence. We've got Zay Jones back in the offense. All of our weapons are intact. Do we just kind of go with a pass-heavy approach anyway? So one of the things was that I was shocked with on the prop lines this morning, that Browning had more pass attempts and completions, just slightly though, but still more than Trevor Lawrence did. And I think part of the expectation, the Jags expected to win, so more rush attempts. But again, with this injury to Etienne, I wonder if that's not so much the case. And so I know, Gladys, you and I, we've a few times this year, we've picked quarterback passing attempts higher than, and we've successfully got at that. So I was considering the 32.5 for Lawrence, but then looking through not just this season, but his career, he's actually hit higher than 20 completions, or 20.5 completions, so higher than 20 completions more often than he's hit higher than 32 pass attempts. So that 20.5 completion number, something we haven't really gone with yet, completions. I think you took Burrow's, it's funny, the last Bengals game, you took Burrow's completions and you went under and he went higher. So you didn't get it that time. But as a group, that's the only time any of us have chosen a quarterback completion numbers. So I'm going to test the luck here. Lately, I've been, the running back receiving yards have been really good. And you noted how often I'm going with defensive tackles if I see low enough numbers. But I'll test it on Trevor Lawrence, higher than 20.5 completions. But then again, the higher passing game means maybe more potential for the pass catchers. And that's where you went with your prop, Gladys.
Yeah, I went with Evan Ingram higher than 8.35 fantasy points this game because Cincinnati is a sieve for tight ends and in the middle. And I think that he hasn't had a touchdown. So he is in store for touchdown progression. And Cincinnati's a team to do it against. His yards were like 45.5 higher or lower. If he gets 45.5 yards and a touchdown, he's already over his fantasy projection. So Evan Ingram higher than 8.35 fantasy points for this game.
And that's half PPR, right?
No. Is it half PPR? I thought it was full PPR.
I'm asking. I don't know.
What does Underdog use as their standard scoring?
Oh, okay.
I don't know.
None of us, we haven't gone fantasy points yet.
I was so confident. She said it doesn't matter. It doesn't matter what
it doesn't matter what
he's going over. He's going to score a 30-yard touchdown, and I'm going to get there anyway. It doesn't matter.
I don't think any of us have gone fantasy points yet this year. I know it's been an option available. We've all kind of shied away from it, so I haven't actually bothered to check. No idea.
Yeah, I don't know what Underdog.
I'll look into it.
But I think it doesn't matter. I'm not going to change it. If it's standard, I still think he'll.
Well, again,
I have so much confidence in Evan Ingram, and plus, just to kind of piss off the B League by mentioning Evan Ingram's name, I'm going to do it.
It's a win with the Jaguars. It's almost like
win-win.
I mean, he had an amazing rookie season with the Giants.
He had an amazing season last year. He's not doing that great this year, but he had an amazing season last year.
He did. It's so great watching the watching the career arc, the character arc of so many players on the Giants. It's like they rock it up, and then they just. So the next one on that career arc is none other than Mr. Tommy DeVito. Now he's everybody's darling. It's wait until that whole thing crashes and burns. I love the guy. He's fantastic, but Giant fans can't help themselves. It's like they prop these guys up to an unrealistic level, and then they burst into flames on the way down. So I think he'll be the next one. But Evan Ingram definitely had that career arc.
But like Gladys said, I think it's the touchdown is key. If he scores the touchdown, you're almost assured to get
your goal, Gladys.
But he can still hit it without scoring a touchdown. He's athletic enough that he'll get enough yards after catch and yards per reception. So even without 3 catches, enough yards, he might still be able to hit that.
Yeah, and he's been doing really well. Like he's well in tight end one territory this year, despite B League's protests.
Yeah.
I mean, 84 yards, he hits it just on yards, right? So like it's that's an attainable goal.
Against
And
Cincinnati,
luckily for you, you can rely on other things other than just yards to get there. So
Freiermuth went for like 100+ against them. So, and that was his day back from IR. Florida State 3, Stanford 1. It's over.
Stanford scored. Good for them.
Yeah. I have a question for maybe Doc.
Okay.
So, rumor has it that the Jets wanted Zach Wilson to come back and play, and he said no. Is that a thing? You can do that? I didn't know that was like a thing. If you're not injured, can you do that?
Yeah, I think you can. I mean,
If they're paying you?
you take yourself out of the game. So I'm not doing it.
So
Cut
are you
me.
taking yourself out of a game because of injury? Like, is he saying, "Oh, I'm hurt, my back hurts, or my leg hurts," or?
I don't think so. I mean, obviously this is going to be a polarizing topic, but it has to do with, kind of whose side are you on? Obviously, Zach Wilson hasn't really performed up to expectations, maybe understatement of the millennium, but the Jets have kind of jerked him around too. I mean, they benched him twice in the last 2 years, not for injury, but for performance. So it's like, how many times can you kick somebody and then go back to them and say, hey, you know what? We made a mistake again, and we want you to go back out there, even though the season's trashed, and we want you to go get your ass kicked for the next 6 games, and then we're probably going to cut you in the offseason, but, do it for the love of the game. And he's like, you know what? Maybe go F yourselves, and you're going to cut me anyway, so pay me my money, and I'll stay healthy, and I'll take my shot with the next team, and I'm not doing it. So good luck. You chose Tim Boyle. You don't want to go with him. You don't want to go with Simeon. Pick somebody off the scrap heap. I would say Joe Flacco, but he's already taken by the Browns. I wish you the best of luck. I don't know. That would be how I would do it. That's a very Bayonne, New Jersey way of looking at it. I know Zach Wilson's not from Bayonne, New Jersey, but
that might be in New York long enough. He's influenced.
So,
that might be, maybe he's been in New York long enough that the New York attitude's got in there, and he's like, hey, you know what? I got your thoughts right here.
So it's
I
a
don't know.
precursor to him not being on the team next year, then, basically.
I mean, is there a way he's on the how could they not cut him?
Well, I thought that last year when they benched him, how could they not cut him? But they kept him.
Yeah, well,
so
I would have to believe that they are not going to want him around, irrespective of anything else, just because it's a distraction.
And does he know that this, because I think whether he's in the right to do this or not, there are some GMs that are going to look negatively at this. And if they were maybe, the Jets are going to move on from him, maybe we were considering taking him on as a project. They might just cross that off the list now. Okay, we'll look elsewhere, right? So what they're also doing
there's a risk either way. There's a risk of you play and you get hurt, and then you have no marketability next year, or you don't play, you're healthy, but other GMs don't want to take a shot at you because you're quote unquote not a team player. So I think you're taking a risk either way. Maybe he's like, hey, you know what? I'd like to not be handicapped for next year going into starting with a new team. So I'll just grab the bench with both hands and best of luck, guys.
Plus, I think GMs are really lax. I mean, Carson Wentz has a job. They're really lax as far as quarterback goes. It's still Poole. And Florida State scored again. 4-1.
You'll get it. It seems like you'll get a second chance, but even look how long it's taken Carson Wentz to get that third chance just to be as a Rams backup, and they only did it because Brett Ripien wasn't cutting at that one game. But
still getting paid.
Yes, still getting paid. So what I think that really screws is actually the Jets' ability to trade him, because now suddenly maybe that's less trade partners, and like you said, they might have to cut him. I think it's one extra way he's kind of sticking it to them is I'll also tank my trade value doing this.
I think
you want me to go out there and have a good
really holding out for that 7th round pick.
I think that ship sailed a long time ago for that.
Probably, and you probably have no choice, but maybe they want, go out and play as good as you can. That way you'll get some trade interest and we'll trade you next offseason. Now he's like, no, just cut me and let me choose.
Yeah, I don't know, man. I mean, didn't DeAndre Swift get traded during the draft for a large Snickers, a bag of Doritos, and a Diet Pepsi? And he's really good. So it's I don't know how much market value Zach Wilson's holding out there.
Yeah, Swift went for a 4th. He's probably not. Yeah, the one last year, the rookie contract.
It was a 4th. Wasn't it a 4th in 2028 or something like that? It was. I
think it might be this year's 4th coming up.
Is it?
I think you're right that it wasn't like a fourth that the Lions used right away, but I think it's something they have banked for this year. But regardless, I mean, it's
Back
1 year of a
this.
rookie contract, right? And I guess what Swift brings is a lot better than Zach Wilson.
Yeah,
And
I
guess
the Jets are really counting on that 7th round pick in 2026 to move him off the roster. I don't know. I mean, it's a valid point, but you could speculate all day on this kind of stuff. But I think in the NFL, we talk about it all the time. Obviously, I'm an injury analyst. I have a bias, but it's really dangerous, and you can have your career ended on any given play. So if you're out there kind of playing, I'm using air quotes here, they're all professionals, I get it. But if you're playing for nothing, in the sense that you're not playing to like go to the playoffs or, win the Super Bowl or anything like that, at a certain point, you have to kind of consider the business component of it. And it's like, do I want to get injured and then have no marketability? And maybe I'm just going to say, you guys aren't interested in me anyway. So sometimes you're just better apart, So it's like, hey, you know what? It's not going to work out here. So let's just go our separate ways. And I'm going to respectfully decline. And I wish you guys the best of luck. I don't know.
Even though B-League Dan isn't with us now, he's apart from us. He's still, again, making his.
He's always a part of us. I wonder how much he's impacted by the fact that the rest of the team was wearing Mike White T-shirts last year. Do you think that affected him at all?
You know what? And I think Mike White was better than Tim Boyle or Trevor Siemian. So
Mike White
that
was
benching
really
last year was almost justified. Like that's something where Zach Wilson could say, you know what, he was the better option.
Yeah.
Like I wasn't playing to par.
That is fair.
But you're gonna bench me for Tim Boyle and then complain when he came out and gave you absolute awful nothing. Like, of course, Zach Wilson's better than Tim Boyle. Like that one probably shouldn't have happened. But like Mike White gave them a better chance to win than Zach Wilson. So I wonder if it's okay. Last year was justified. This year isn't. Like I may not be playing up to par, but I'm still better than that guy. So it's not a play reason. It's a locker room reason. And I wonder if like the conversation that was had when Zach Wilson was benched, I wonder what was said to him. And is he kind of throwing whatever was said to him back in their face? Like, yeah, we have to make a change for the locker room.
Yeah.
The guys just don't.
Yeah.
That's true. How the hell did you go back to me? Because aren't you? If your precious locker room is that important, how could you dare go back to me then?
Yeah, exactly.
I wonder if there's a bit like again, we don't know what's behind the scenes, but one thing we do know is Dan's pick for his prop, which we'll share before we get to Doc's injury segment, the best moment on TV every year. Only once this year, so it's here, folks. It's exclusive. But Dan is taking the only Bengals prop. We've got 3 Jaguars players, but Dan's going with Joe Mixon. He's going higher than what is it? It's 19 and a half receiving yards. He's mentioning a few things about Joe Mixon. So first off, there's Mixon has gone over 31 receiving yards in 3 of his last 4 games, so already a high total, and averaging 26 in that time span. And now the one thing with the Jags defense specifically works well for this. They have the second fewest rush yards allowed this year, but the most receptions to running backs and the fourth most receiving yards to running backs. So it seems like that's an area where they could be vulnerable specifically against running backs. Maybe it has to also do with their great pass rush. Quarterbacks are having to dump off to the running backs more quickly as well. Josh Allen dominating, even better than Josh Allen quarterbacks dominating this year, to be honest. Josh Allen, the defensive lineman for the Jaguars. And so I think that could also impact it positively for Mixon. So 19 and a half receiving yards. I do, Gladys, I mentioned, I think you have as well recently gone with these lower receiving yards for running backs, and it's worked out.
Wait, what was Doc? Doc, what was your prop?
To Ernest Johnson, Hoya, then 20.5 rushing yards.
20.5?
20.5, yes.
Huh. Okay.
Hoya.
Right,
Yeah,
that's
Hoya.
Gotta
those are
go deep
our
cuts for you guys. It's been a while.
Yeah, it's great to have you back, Doc. And of course, those were our prop picks. Maybe we'll repeat them at the end, but for now, let's get to Doc's injury segment. So talked about I listed a few players. I know some others got listed. I think Doc might have put some of these on himself, but I really did want to start at the wide receiver position. I think the one easy one we could start with is Tank Dell, the broken leg. He's out for the season.
Yeah.
Maybe the dynasty impacts of that. I would expect like this wouldn't impact training camp, but let us know, Doc. If
So he broke his fibula, which is one of the small bone in the outside of the leg, which is non-weight bearing. So that's the good news. And he's out for the year. It's very similar to Tony Pollard from last year. And just kind of like whatever we thought about that last year is kind of like how I see Tank Dell this year. Like it really shouldn't affect anything going forward. If it does create a buying opportunity, I think he's he's definitely a buy given what he's done so far this year. But I don't see this impacting him, 2024 or at all really. It's just it's unfortunate because he's been having such a great year this year.
I think you're muted.
I think you're on mute, Kyle.
I was just going to say, what a great book that Gladys has. Injuries suck, but your fantasy team doesn't have to. My mute button does, apparently. No, that's my fault. But yes, Dr. James Ferretti, author, not just a doctor, but also an author, and such an impressive career. And this fantastic fantasy book. Phenomenal, Doc. Everyone can get it on Amazon. Anything you'd like to say about this precious creation of yours,
Doc? Precious creation. Yeah, I mean, I guess I really put this, I was going to send you guys some thoughts earlier, but I really just put this out there because I want to be able to help people get better at injury analysis, be able to read between the lines of the media reports, because it's complicated. And this is the time of year where, you can kind of get confused and get led astray by players you think are going to come back. They don't come back because they're given unrealistic timetables, the coach speak, the media reports. You have to read between the lines. And this book, really, the goal is to help you do that, help you make better decisions, more informed decisions, make better lineup decisions, and hopefully win some championships. So still time. If you're heading to the playoffs, check it out. And of course, we got the rest of the segment to talk about some guys. Hopefully we don't lead you astray. We send you down the right path and get you into the playoffs and towards those championships.
You must really love that book, Glass. You never want to put it down.
Hey, Doc, I have a question.
Yeah.
So Pickett went out with a high ankle sprain?
He did.
But then he had ankle surgery?
Yeah. So what he had is tightrope surgery, which is very similar to it's what
Darren Waller last year. A couple years
ago. Darren Waller had it, and Cooper Kupp had it as well.
What are you calling it? What is it called?
It's tightrope surgery. Okay. So basically, what they do is they put a screw in the area where, when you have a high ankle sprain, the bones in the ankle kind of separate, and you injure all the tissue in between the two bones in the leg. And in order to kind of hold those together, they put a screw in there with a string, and they pull the string and kind of tie it in a knot. I'm paraphrasing, but that's the general idea, is to use it to tighten the tissue and allow it to come together so it can heal. And that's basically the premise. So that's what he had done in order to kind of give him the opportunity to have the tissues heal a little bit easier. It doesn't really affect the time frame for how long players are out. With a high ankle sprain, it's still kind of like a 4 to 6 week deal. But the hope is, especially with the Steelers having playoff aspirations, that he's going to be able to come back from this and heal completely, so he doesn't have a setback or a recurrence of injury.
Okay. So why doesn't everyone who have a high ankle sprain get this done?
Well, it's a really good question. So as we learned earlier in the year, somebody called Fantasy Receipts. Remember we were talking about Jerome Ford and his high ankle sprain?
Yeah.
And it was like, oh, he's going to be out for 3 or 4 weeks or whatever. And he didn't, I think he missed maybe a week or not even a week. And he hasn't really been great, but he's been out there. That is very atypical. But it was a lesson for me, because most of the time high ankle sprains are pretty underplayed by the media, by coaches, by players, by whatever. And we see time and time again, as we've seen on the show for the last 3 years, that players with high ankle sprains are out for multiple weeks, and they say they're coming back, and they usually don't. The overwhelming majority of the time, they don't.
And if they ever do come back early, there's a huge risk of injury, or they're just really not.
They're limited. It's their decoys. It's, Calvin Johnson basically made the last 2 years of his career into being a decoy when coming back from high ankle sprains, and eventually he had to retire.
Catches.
Yeah, but Jerome Ford was able to kind of play through it. So it really was a low-grade high ankle sprain. It sounds like if they wanted to operate on Kenny Pickett, that it was a legitimate high ankle sprain where the ankle ligaments were damaged down closer to the foot, the tissue was damaged higher up, and the other ligaments were damaged higher up in the leg. So it was a real, honest-to-goodness, legit high ankle sprain. So they said, we better go in and fix this because we want him back for the playoffs, hopefully.
Okay.
Jamie, always the good Samaritan. Apparently, he plugged your book in the group today. Everyone was talking about the QB injuries and stuff. Well, you want to deal with injuries, this book will help you and guide you for sure.
There you go. Thank you very much, Jamie.
Yeah, injuries suck for sure. They've ruined certain franchises this year. The Saints, their franchise QB, I think, Derek Carr. as well, dealing with
Yeah.
injuries basically all season. And yet they still refuse to put Jameis Winston, just like I guess last year the same coaching staff must really not like Winston.
Yeah, there's something about him that rubs them the wrong way. But I wanted to tell you guys this. I want to tell the audience too. Like, I can't tell you the number of times I've read, other stuff, other material that comes out every week. It's like the Monday roundup, and it's like, oh, another week of injuries. I can't believe it's been so bad. I wish there weren't so many injuries. Look, here's the bottom line. Doc's going to bottom line it for you. If you play fantasy football and you want there to be no injuries and not have it affect your team, that's like jumping into the swimming pool and not wanting to get wet. Like, it's just not going to happen. Like, you have to accept that this is a part of the game that we play. And the way to avoid it is to get better at analyzing it, get better at reacting to it, and get better at planning for it, not sitting around and hoping that it's not going to affect your team, because spoiler alert, it probably is going to. So that's the best advertisement for any type of following any injury analysis that you can do. The better you get at that, I believe, and I have a bias, but the better your teams are going to do, because you can't avoid it. Football's a dangerous sport, but injuries are a part of the game. It's not going away. No matter how many rules they try to make, or how many protocols they make, it's still really big, fast, strong people running into each other at a high rate of speed, so much so that physics-wise it mimics a low-speed car crash. When that happens, people are going to get hurt. So that's my 2 cents on that.
And yeah,
You
it'll
have
be a
to
little
speak
more
with-
than 2
speak
cents,
with
but not
bias.
too much more to buy the book and help you with that expertise and hopefully potentially win you a lot more money than what you'll spend just on the book.
Speechless. That little diatribe left you speechless, and I'm here for it. All right, where do we go? Where do we go next?
Well, yeah, I guess we'll finish up with the other quarterback. Is Derek Carr. Is there anything you want to say about Derek Carr? Is he so bad in fantasy that no one should even roster him anyway?
No, I would never say that. I think Derek Carr is
I say that. Sorry,
he's an excellent human being. Unfortunately, he is in the concussion protocol. He may also have a rib injury, so he's probably out for week 14, and we'll kind of see after that. I guess the question is, like you said, with Jameis Winston, we did see this week that another B-League favorite, Taysom Hill, saw some increased usage, and he's been pretty serviceable, especially if you're hurting at tight end. So does that continue? I think it probably does. I think this coaching staff is definitely more apt to kind of get him involved in that hybrid Swiss Army knife role that Sean Payton always envisioned for him and gave him $140 million so he could do that. And this new regime seems to have kind of embraced that. So that's kind of encouraging to see. I don't know how it's going to go with Jameis Winston versus Taysom Hill. But yeah, it does seem like they have kind of they don't really like what Jameis brings to the table down there.
Is Olave in concussion protocol too?
I think he's out of the I think he was able to play, if I'm not mistaken. Is that right? I feel like
Olave did play this week.
Yeah, so he's good.
No, I think he got hurt this week.
Did he get hurt again?
I think he got hurt again.
All right, well, let's look. But yeah, so those are. I don't know what your thoughts are as far as like, is Jameis Winston even worth a pickup?
Yeah, I think if he's going to start, I think he certainly is. He's got good weapons, and he's always been kind of a high upside sort of fantasy, like super high ceiling, really low floor for fantasy. Though, if he throws 4 pick sixes in the game, he's not really getting you many points. But, like, he will so there's definitely upside there enough to where, if Trevor Simeon's starting for the Jets, I'd much rather play Jameis Winston.
Yeah, so you could certainly make room.
I'd probably rather play him than Desmond Ridder.
Yeah, right. No, I totally get it. I just looked up Olave. It looks like he kind of beat the odds because he came back from a concussion without missing a week, and it looks like he made it through unscathed. I haven't heard anything about him being concussed, but I'll keep an eye out for you. But I haven't heard anything.
I will say with Winston, I don't think there's too much effect on the receivers though. Like Olave, I would still rank him basically about the same as I would with Carr normally anyway. I don't think that's too much effect there. I guess the one question I would have about just these 2 injured quarterbacks, who would you rather pick up, Jameis Winston or Mitch Trubisky? Let's say you need to start one week 14.
That's a really good question. I think I probably would still go Jameis just because he's got more chances to throw those YOLO balls down the field to Olave and do whatever else. But something else I thought about with Trubisky that I wanted to ask Gladys is, now that it looks like Trubisky is going to be in for the better part of the fantasy season. Remember last year when Trubisky wasn't doing much of anything, but Deontay Johnson and Pat Freiermuth and Najee Harris were catching all these short passes? Like, is it possible that we see their stock go up even if the Steelers kind of maintain the same position overall, or maybe even take a step back, like it's kind of more funneled to some of these other players that have been kind of up and down for the majority of the year.
I think
Najee Harris being more down than up, unfortunately.
I think that I think it's entirely matchup dependent. I think that without Matt Canada there, that the ceiling is higher, but I don't like they play Zappy and the New England Patriots Thursday,
Mm-hmm.
which is surprisingly, even without Gonzalez, a really good defense. I wouldn't play Trubisky or any of the Steelers this week. I think they're totally matchup dependent now, and I think they're like the first game without Canada, 400 yards. This last game they lost by double-digit points to an Arizona team that is limping into the. I don't know. So I would be careful and watch and see what kind of offensive rules they run out with Trubisky. But no, I don't think their ceiling is appreciably raised at all.
I would say the one player to me that I think can maintain is Deontay. And we've seen it. He's played he played 3 quarters with Trubisky. I think he has as many touchdowns with Trubisky this year as he does from Pickett. Now, Deontay also missed a chunk of the season too, so he hasn't played like that many more quarters. But he's someone I think that Trubisky, we saw it, in the past, he will hyper target his top guys. So I think Deontay will at least maintain through volume, get a ton of targets. Everyone else I worry about, like you said, matchups. The Patriots typically really shut down tight ends pretty well. So Freiermuth would be a really scary start this week. Future weeks in better tight end matchups, I think he's playable even with Trubisky. But yeah, this week it's probably just Deontay. And I would agree with you, Doc. I would also rather pick up Jameis than Mitch.
Okay. I like Gladys's Steelers algebra. It's like Pittsburgh Steelers minus Kenny Pickett, minus Matt Canada, plus Trubisky, plus a short week. The limit goes to 0.
It goes to 0. Did you watch, Doc? Did you see the Houston-Denver game yesterday?
I didn't actually see the game. No.
So in one of the plays, Stroud, I don't think he got hit, but he had to get up.
Yeah, that's
and
right.
he was wobbly, and so they made him come out. Like he kept saying, "I'm okay, I'm wobbly," because I think his breastplate or something was going on. So they made him come out. He goes into the blue tent, and then he comes right back out. Who's in the blue tent? Is it just the independent, or is it the independent and the team doctor?
I thought it was the Great Oz was behind the blue tent. That's not how it is. That's not how it works. Pay no attention to the man behind the curtain. I have no idea. I think it's somebody who's doing a neurology screening. But I guess
independent of the team, right?
You're right. There is the independent neurologist in there, but you're right, Gladys. There might be someone else in there. But I wonder, could this have been, because Stroud was already dealing with an injury, like he was limping earlier. I wonder if it's whether it's a calf injury or it just seemed like something lower body was bugging him already, and I wonder if that's why he was kind of wobbly standing up, like
I mean maybe, but he passed the test, but they also have spotters now too, where it's who are employed by the NFL, and basically if they spot that you're displaying concussion symptoms, irrespective of whether you cleared the initial concussion protocol, then you're out for the rest of the game anyway. So that was a new thing that they instituted last year. And he could still have delayed onset of symptoms, later on. We saw that with Brock Purdy a couple of weeks ago. And he ended up playing
a plane ride, right?
Yeah. So, but it's the symptoms came on later. So the real thing is going to be we saw with Tua last year, if CJ Stroud goes out next week, and irrespective of whether he actually passed the concussion protocol this week or not, if he gets a concussion next week, then everybody's going to lose their minds again. Some independent neurologist is going to get fired, and Twitter is going to go berserk. But we'll see. So hopefully that doesn't happen, but that's always a possibility.
We really hope that Stroud's okay.
Yeah, we don't want that.
Because they're already going to be without Tank Dell, and I guess that leads us to talking about wide receivers now. And what better place to start with than, frankly, the 2 top wide receivers in a lot of drafts this year? Maybe 2 of the top 3, but certainly at the top of a lot of draft boards this year was Justin Jefferson as the 101. So, Doc, do we finally expect a return from this hamstring injury in Week 14?
Yeah, I think so. I think he's going to be back after the bye, and I think they treated it right. It looked like even from the beginning it was a grade 2 partial tear. just given the way that he wasn't able to recover in the timeline. It's been about 2 months, which is kind of what it takes for a partial tear to heal, provided it's not so bad that you need surgery. So I think there's a small risk of re-injury, but you got to fire him up if he's active. I mean, it's Justin Jefferson. It's probably for a lot of teams, it's win or go home. So if he's out there, I'm starting him, and I'm feeling pretty good about it. I don't know who the quarterback's going to be, but if Justin Jefferson's out there, I'm putting him out there.
I think you owe it to Josh Dobbs to give him a full game with Justin Jefferson.
You would
he
think
hasn't
so,
yet have the best offense, right? Let's see what he can do with Jefferson. I think you have to at least try that out and see. So I'm not the coach of the Vikings, so I don't know, but the fact that he's already won a couple games for them, I figure it's got to be him, right?
I would think so, but I guess we'll find out. Who's the other?
Nick Mullins.
No, I know that, but who's the other wide receiver?
Cooper Kupp.
Right. So this one's tough, man. So he's been out there coming back from his hamstring injury to start the year. So he kind of started off slow and made way for the emergence of Puka Nacua. And he's been out there. Admittedly, it hasn't been great. He injured his ankle in week 11. He's kind of been gutting it out. But since week 7, PPR points, week 7, 4.9, week 8, 6.1, week 9, 6.8, was on a bye week 10, week 11, 2.1, week 12, 4.8. These are not Cooper Kupp numbers by any stretch of the imagination.
Those are Cooper Kupp quarters.
What's that? Yeah, right.
Cooper Kupp quarters.
Yes, but drives. And week 13, 15.9, thanks to a late kind of garbage timey touchdown. Otherwise, he would have been under double digits again. So, I don't know. Could all the injuries be taking a toll on him for this year? I don't know how much the age really has to do with it because, he's 30. It's not like he's like 50. But I think he still has a really high ceiling week to week, but the floor is definitely lower than it has been in the past. So, it's tough. It doesn't feel like the nice warm blanket that he was, throwing him in as a wide receiver 1 or 2 in the past couple of years when he was healthy.
Does it seem like Puka has replaced Cooper Kupp as the number 1 receiver in this offense?
I mean, I think at times the thing with Puka is like he's still a rookie. He's been amazing, and he certainly made the most of his opportunities and then some. But he's dealing with his own stuff. He's got an AC joint sprain, which at this point they don't think is going to keep him out of the game. But irrespective of whether it keeps him out of the game or not, this coming week, they're really painful injuries, and it's almost certainly going to limit him. So, it becomes really tough. And that game that, Matthew Stafford had a couple of weeks ago where he had 4 touchdowns, and I think 2 of them went to Tyler Higbee and 2 of them went to
one was to Kyren. I think he passed one to Kyren, and then
Kyren Williams, and then there was another one to somebody else. So
that
was disappointing.
Marcus Robinson.
Yeah, right.
Sure.
So that was pretty disappointing. So you don't know. You don't know what it's going to look like. And unfortunately, this is the time of year where you want to have more of that stability. But, I mean, it's still Cooper Kupp. And I'll tell you what, I don't want to get knocked out of the playoffs because I left Cooper Kupp on my bench and he goes for 35. And, I started somebody else and, that's why I lost. Like that really would, I think, feel pretty bad.
Gladys, what do you think? Like if you were ranking Kupp and Nacua, who would you rank higher this week? Who would you be more?
Who are they playing?
Sorry?
That's a good question. I will look that up.
Who are they playing? They're playing the Ravens.
The Ravens. Oh, it's tough.
Yeah, I wouldn't play Kupp. I would rank Puka higher, but I don't even know what the injury. Right, the Ravens defense is pretty legit. I mean, and they're coming off a bye. And isn't Stafford coming off like old man injury? Like he's like
he was hurt before their bye week.
Down. Yeah, well, I mean,
started.
I mean, Stafford's been hurt for the better part of like his 30s.
Career.
So,
yeah.
So, career, Gladys, to be honest.
Yeah. I would rate Puka higher, but I don't know that I would play Kupp against the Ravens if he's still injured. If he still looks like he's injured. I'm the opposite of Doc. I don't have a problem. Like if I get knocked out because I said Kupp and he goes off, I'm okay with it. I said Kupp because I thought he was hurt.
You didn't
So,
think this is the same 2021 Cooper Cup. This is a different version of
yeah,
Cup.
and I
that's the
think
player you're
that
sitting now.
the
not
matchup
Will.
is really, really not advantageous to him.
And
Yeah.
for a
And-
slot receiver, like the Ravens have one of the best slot corners in the league. So
Exactly. And I don't know that it's going to be a game where they have to keep up points. You know what I mean? Like I don't see
Yeah.
the Ravens scoring like an astronomical amount of points on them. So I would sit Cup, but again, I play a lot differently than Doc, which is probably why I'm in last place in our league.
well, and it's funny because I don't have either. I have 0 shares of Cooper Cup or Puka Nakua, so I don't really have to make this decision in any league. But last week I ranked. Actually, I think the last couple weeks I've been ranking Nakua higher than Cup, and I think I would do the same this week. So knowing both are dealing with injuries, it seems like Nakua is able to play
Puka's
through them
had
a bit
such an
better.
amazing season. I mean, he's over 1,000 yards now. That's just beyond anybody's expectations of what he could do. Like
Yeah.
he's just been amazing.
He's good. I like him, but again, like you said, the injuries. It's like you're in a car crash, man. I mean, I don't think people understand how much they hurt. These people hurt when they play and when they come back, and you're still hurt. I mean, yeah, you get really good drugs, and yeah, you're drugged up for like half a game or whatever, but you're still hurt. You're still limping out there.
You're still
Yeah.
there's limitations on the overall. I can get to that spot a little quicker,
Yeah,
and I'll just
I
be
mean-
a step or two behind where you normally can, and you won't be able to operate at peak performance.
Did you guys see Quarterback, the series that was on Netflix?
Yep.
I refuse to watch it because Patrick Mahomes' picture is on the cover.
I mean, I don't know what to say to that, but would you
I
have
watched
felt better if it was Jared Goff, your dreamboat secret
Yeah,
crush?
for sure. I would.
All
Not
right,
so
well-
secret anymore. Now.
They should
Not so secret, is it?
Mariota is like the prettier face. They probably should have put him.
Despite
That's just-
Gladys's relatively reasonable objections,
He's the highest pick there. He's a second overall pick in the draft. Marcus Mariota, the franchise
There you go.
quarterback. That's what.
one of the things that I thought was really eye-opening was they followed Kirk Cousins as one of the quarterbacks. For those that haven't seen it, and Kirk Cousins is 35. It's not like he's
Spring chicken.
40 or 50. And the amount of attention and work that he had to get from two separate professionals to kind of like realign his body and work on his muscles and kind of keep him like limber enough to be able to just play was really amazing. It was like 3, 4, 5 days a week sometimes where he had to have hours of treatment just to be able to kind of go out there, and then he would re-aggravate it or get injured again and kind of
Take a
like
ton of
the whole
sacks.
thing. Yeah, like lather, rinse, repeat. And it was like, man, like the level of dedication and the level of sacrifice that they have to make just to kind of get their bodies ready to be able to play in some sort of way, shape, or form. Like it was really eye-opening, even to me as a medical professional. So that was something people should check out if they haven't seen it.
I think they discount the amount of, and I know they're getting paid like a king's ransom to play this game, and it's a game. But like you said, every time they get hit, it's like a small car crash. Your a helmet is going into your body.
Yeah.
And it's like any of these yahoos who are like, oh, you should still get out there and play. Why don't you let a helmet go into your body
Yeah,
several
exactly.
times and see how much you want to get up again? That's ridiculous.
Exactly.
Yeah. Tons of injuries.
Florida State scored again, 5-1. Game's over.
So how much time is left? I think they might have it wrapped up at this point.
I think it is wrapped up at this point.
Jeez.
It's like 2 minutes left.
Okay. I think
It's done.
I think we're good. I think the
Florida State is-
who's winning? Florida State.
Yeah, they were one. Florida State's one.
They're
Stanford-
mad after
Florida-
not getting their football.
Florida
team
State
in
money
the
lines
playoffs.
coming in.
Yeah, the money line.
So, is there anybody else that you guys wanted to specifically attend to,
so-
or should we rapid fire it?
Well, I
Rapid
think-
fire, I love it.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, we're gonna
Yeah.
rapid fire no matter what. But before we do, is there anybody that you wanted to attend
Oh,
to?
sorry. I was overexcited about rapid fire. No.
The main ones I want to touch on, we covered. It's mostly just Justin Jefferson, to be honest. In my most important league, I want to know that I should play him,
Okay.
or that I'd be able
Get
to
him,
play him.
get him
Yeah.
out there.
And
Get him
I
out.
thought that Rams discussion was important. But yeah, the first one on the list is Christian Watson. So if you want to take any more time on any of them, it's him. But yeah, go right ahead, Doc.
Yeah. All right. Well, we'll get to him. So we already hit the quarterback. So let's start with the running backs and go.
Go.
So Derrick Henry, running back for Tennessee. Concussion, maybe not. Talk to Mike Vrabel. It says he doesn't actually have a concussion. So delayed onset symptoms could still happen. So be on the lookout for that. But it looks like, provided that doesn't happen, he'll be available for week 14. Sorry, Tajay Spears owners or managers. Jonathan Taylor, this one was interesting. So he played in week 12, looked really good, and it's like football, right? Oh, by the way, he tore a thumb ligament, and he's going to be out for 3 to 5 weeks, probably going to be more like 4 to 6 weeks. He needed surgery for the ligament injury. Indy's currently 7-5 against all odds, and they're the 7th seed. Can they hang in long enough in the playoff picture for JT to come back? I don't know. It remains to be seen. But if they fall out of it, this may be all of the JT that we've seen all year. So Zach Moss might be the guy going down the stretch indefinitely. Ramondre Stevenson, ankle injury, unknown severity. Unlikely he plays Thursday either way. Low ankle sprain, high ankle sprain. We don't know. If it's a low ankle sprain, he could be back as soon as week 15. High ankle sprain, and it could be the end of his 2023. Could this be Zeke's revenge? Finally, Doc has been standing for Zeke for 2 years. Does he actually make himself relevant in the fantasy playoffs? I don't know. Could be. But he should get some run going into this Thursday game this week either way. So be on the lookout for that. Brian Robinson, hamstring injury. He's got a bye in week 14, so it doesn't really matter for the short term. We don't know the severity, but probably looking at week 15 or 16. Again, they're out of the playoffs. They're 4-9. So do they even bring him back if this thing drags on? Could it actually be another Doc Stan, Antonio Gibson season? Could be. And don't forget about Chris Rodriguez in case Antonio Gibson, who's had a little trouble getting nicked up here and there. If he goes out, that could be like a late season. Who is this guy who just scored me 20 points in my championship game? DeAndre Swift. So this one's developing. It looks like he left the game kind of towards the end of the game. The Eagles getting blown out. So I don't know how much to make out of that, but watch the practice reports. Think about the possibility that if he's actually injured, remember the Eagles have had Rashad Penny and he's been inactive this whole time because they know that he's made out of glass, but in short spurts, he could be really productive. It always occurred to me that they could be holding him back for a playoff run and then running him out there and trying to get like a short burst where he just kind of like does a Lombardi Lenny Philly style and carries them to the promised land. So I don't know. It's a thought. So I'm sure that he's out there. He's cheap. If it ends up that DeAndre Swift misses, this could be Rashad Penny time. Seattle running backs.
Quick talk on that, because I know you're a big Kenneth Gainwell fan. If Gainwell's available, though, would you still prefer to pick up Gainwell over Penny?
I mean, probably. I would probably pick up either one of them.
Yeah.
But I like
if you have to prioritize, you just spend more on one.
Yeah, Rashad Penny for kind of like the yardage and the carries and the touchdowns. But the Eagles' offense is good, so there's plenty of pieces of the pie to go around. I think you can do worse than either one of those guys.
Even Boston Scott, then. Sorry.
Oh, Boston Scott. Well, I mean, it's like he's there, like, but I would probably.
I would expect the other two would get more carries. Like he'd be the third guy to prioritize.
That would be it, unless they have Rashad Penny there for absolutely no reason whatsoever, and they just aren't planning.
Now they are playing the Giants in week 16. If Swift's still out for week 16, Boston Scott would be the good play that week, but every other week he's the third guy.
There you go. So Kenneth Walker missed the last 2 games with his oblique injury. Hasn't been able to practice since. Pete Carroll says he might be back week 14, but we know how that goes. We got to see him practice where he can get excited.
He's out for the season, isn't it?
Yeah, you're right. So it's like, if Pete Carroll says he might be back week 14, then we find out in 2 weeks that he's actually like retiring. So I don't know. It remains to be seen. Zach Charbonnet, knee injury this past week, severity unclear. Just watch practice reports and maybe pick up DJ Dallas just in case. Seattle's 6-6, so they're still kind of hanging in there in the playoff race. Wide receivers, talked about Justin Jefferson. Christian Watson, hamstring injury. Man, it's been an up and down season for him. Formal evaluation coming Tuesday. If it's a grade 1, probably looking at 2 to 3 weeks. On the low end, grade 2, it's kind of Justin Jefferson territory, 4 to 6 weeks, maybe longer. Amari Cooper, concussion, almost assuredly out for week 14, and then we'll see. But Joe Flacco's there, so all hope is not lost for the Cleveland offense. The Rams we talked about. Marquise Brown with the heel. This one kind of sucks. So he was limited in practice leading up to week 13. He left in the third quarter, and he goosed. 0 catches on 3 targets. Could be a bone bruise, could be plantar fasciitis. They got a bye in week 14 anyway. But even after that, there's still got to be the concern that he leaves early when he does get back out there. I wouldn't feel super comfortable with him until I can see him actually get through a game.
Tight end game playing is a fantasy playoff game.
Yeah, right. So that's really scary. scary business running him out there in a playoff matchup.
He doesn't seem to have enough upside, like you say, like a Cooper Kupp would. Like you're scared about his floor, but he's got enough upside that you'd be willing to risk it. But Marquise Brown doesn't seem like he has that same upside where if there's any risk, you may as well not risk it. Go with
only in case of emergency would you want to throw Marquise Brown out there in that situation, but you never know. And sometimes you get to the playoffs and you scratch your claw and you slide in there as a 6 seed and you're like, hey, I'm here. This is what I got. Let's throw it against the wall, see what sticks. So, it could happen. Dalton Schultz, hamstring injury, missed week 13 after not practicing all week. Even a low-grade hamstring injury, like we talked about, can be 2 to 3 weeks. So he could easily miss week 14 and beyond. Brevin Jordan actually looked adequate in his absence. 3 catches on 4 targets for 64 yards. If he snakes a touchdown in there, that's 15-plus PPR points, so that's not too bad. Dallas Goedert, forearm fracture, injured in week 9. Has been out ever since, but he is back at practice, and he does have a chance to play week 14 against Dallas. And then for all you IDP players out there, my hat's off to you because I don't know how you guys can keep all that information in your brain. But Nick Bolton, the linebacker for Kansas City, he's had a wrist injury. He's been out for about 2 months. They have activated his window to activate him off of IR, so he could be a sneaky play if everybody else forgot about him. Because when he does get out there, he can be really productive. And scene.
Brilliant, Doc.
Wow,
Sorry for
crowd
my
goes
interruption.
wild.
Like, I wanted to make
The
funny
crowd
comments.
goes
But
All
also
right. So before we get into anything else, just like guys that we talked about, I just want to throw it out there. Guys to consider adding if you have a free spot based on injuries and things like that. Dearness Johnson, because of the injury to Travis Etienne, does that get worse? DJ Dallas, if Pete Carroll turns out to, God forbid, lie to us about some injury information. Rashad Penny, we talked about. Tajay Spears, in case Derrick Henry gets post-concussion syndrome, at some point during the week that develops the late onset. For the Packers, Jaden Reed and Dontavian Wicks, because of the injury to Christian Watson, assuming that he's going to miss at least a week and maybe more. Noah Brown because of the injury to Tank Dell. And then Jameis Winston / Taysom Hill, if you're really down bad at quarterback, they could actually get you, some production. And Taysom Hill has that benefit of playing tight end as well. And, of course, you want to back up your handcuffs and your studs. Fresh legs for even a week or two can win you championships. # Jerick McKinnon. So there you go.
So real quick, if anyone wants to bet in the last 2 minutes before locks, 3/4 of us tonight, and that includes Dan, who's not on camera, are going with the Bengals as 10-point underdogs. I'm the only one who's taking the Jags as 10-point favorites. We're split down the middle on the over-under. Doc and I are going lower. Gladys and Dan going higher.
Hoyle lower, not over-under.
And then for the player props, Dan went with Joe Mixon higher than 19.5 receiving yards. Gladys went Evan Ingram higher than 8.35 fantasy points. I went with Trevor Lawrence higher than 20.6 completions. And Doc ends, like we started with a running back, ends with a running back. The name we've mentioned probably the most on the show tonight, Dearness Johnson, higher than 20.5 rushing yards. You have a minute to bet if you want any of those.
There you
Yay. And I appreciate Doc so much being on. I've missed you so much.
go. Oh, this was great, guys. It really was.
That quick injury roundup got me so excited. And it's like, oh, no, all these players are hurt.
Best thing on podcasts ever.
Yeah, for sure. Hope our listeners thought the same. Glad to have Doc back. This week 13 Bengals at Jaguars game. Again, this is the 2-point conversion Monday Night Football pregame show. Dr. James Freddy can be found on Twitter /X, not at Dr. X, but at TFS Doc, the fantasy sports doc. And of course, the fantasy sports doc writes, injuries suck, but your fantasy team doesn't have to. And where did the disembodied Dan's voice come from?
Whereas not everybody hates the B League impression. So guys, think about it this way. We talk about like the rookies and dynasty going forward. The one question I want you guys to think about as we kind of head into the off season of 2023 and getting ready for 2024 is staying healthy in the NFL a skill. Like think about rookies, like the super talented guys like Anthony Richardson, Tank Dell. They got all this potential. They get injured. They're out for the year. So as much as you guys know, I'm not an ageist, and you know that I'm always like kind of taking the nails out of the coffin of these guys when people want to bury them because they're turning 30 or something like that. There's a saying, I came across this quote, beware the old man in a world where men die young. And the NFL is definitely a world where men die young. So if you are still out there and you're still producing when you're in your late 20s and going into your early 30s, that might be a skill. That might be something that is worth investing in, even if your age is getting up there. So,
Wait, I have a question for you, Doc.
yeah.
I heard someone say, and I never thought of this, like the college season is what, 12 games, 11 games?
Yeah. Mhm.
Is the rookie hitting a wall, is that like a real, could that be a real thing? Because they're playing
Oh, I
like
think
4
it's
more games.
definitely a real thing for sure.
Okay.
I think that's a big part of it. And you can see that with rookies. I think one of the things that's like you kind of have to find the balance is, are there rookies who start slow because they're not getting playing time, they're not getting reps, and then they have fresh legs when everybody else is kind of tired. But
Right.
for guys that kind of start and they play the whole way, it'll be really interesting to see how CJ Stroud does
And
as
that's
he
what they were
kind of
talking
gets
about.
to that rookie wall type thing. Like, the defenses start to figure him out a little bit more. Does the wear and tear kind of start to show up? The bumps,
Okay.
the bruises, the things like that. Will he be able to transcend that? Definitely something to kind of watch. But it's also the other thing is it's player dependent. So it's something that goes into the filter, but I don't think it supersedes everything else.
Okay.
So that's kind of the way that I see it and the way that I try to approach it. But if you guys like this type of injury analysis and you want to get better at doing it yourself, we talked about the book a bunch of times. It's on Amazon. It's on Audible. There's an audio version. There's an e-version. You can read it on your phone while you're on the toilet. I don't judge. It doesn't matter. You can listen to it. You can ingest it
I'm
however
sorry,
you want.
what was the name of the book?
Injuries suck, but your fantasy team doesn't have to.
Oh, yeah. Okay.
But
On
thank you
Amazon.
guys so much for having me back. It feels like I never left. It's really great. It's great
For
to see you
you,
guys be
Feels like
here.
you've been gone 3,000
We haven't
years.
we've been injured here. We have no idea how to heal ourselves.
3,000 years. All right.
My shoulder's really sore. What can you recommend, Doc?
I have to go change stations because game's over.
Because
Florida
Troy
State
Aikman's about to
5,
be on.
Stanford 1.
I would also want to avoid Troy Aikman. No,
Avoid what?
that's not Monday Night Propaganda to end.
No, I don't watch Troy Aikman. I watch the Manning cast until
yeah.
they get like people and I don't
It's
like.
not.
Manning.
It's premium in Canada. Apparently, we got to pay extra for the.
Oh, really?
Yeah, that's why I don't get it. Yeah, I thought it was just I just don't got these channels anymore.
Yeah,
no, I
it's ESPN
discovered
too.
they've got. I guess they got an agreement with TSN that if you
$4 billion somehow.
if you want, you gotta get the TSN premium package in order to have access to.
Sorry.
The cast.
All right. Thanks, Doc, again. Dan, kid, happy birthday. I don't know your name.
Yes. Happy birthday, Little League or Little B League.
Okay.
It's a minuscule B instead of a capital B league.
Bye.
That joke takes way long to explain. Just like this outro takes long to say. But one thing I will shout out is Doc's injury channel on the Going for Two Discord. So goingfor2.com.
Yeah, baby.
Which also a great website. Gladys writes articles there. I do some rankings there.
Yeah.
But then there's also a link to the Discord, the Going for Two Discord, which has tons of great channels,
Discord.
including Doc's injury channel. So ask him anything. He'll be active in there, and it's great. Gladys, it's our finale next week, a doubleheader. Packers are playing the Giants, actually. So that'll be fun to have Dan and I on the same program again. And
the only
then
reason I'm coming back.
we have the Dolphins and Titans, I believe. Is the other.
No, I'm coming back for the Packers Giants talk.
So glad Dan will be back. But yeah, it'll be our final episode next week. So looking forward to that. And this game tonight and 2 other games for you to catch up with me as I'm currently leading our pick'em pool. But we'll find out on the thrilling conclusion of the 2-point conversion Monday night preview.